All right, I am really excited about today's broadcast, today's podcast. It's going to be a really informative program, and I love talking about health and fitness. I myself, I've lost 55 pounds here recently, and it was probably the smartest thing I've ever done. And I'm always learning, and I'm always attentive when I hear people talking about health, talking about wealth is health, and when they have a passion and sincerity for it, my ears always perk up. And I was at an event called the Hero Project not too long ago, and I heard this gentleman speaking, and I thought, you know what, I need to have this guy on this podcast to really help people get some breakthrough in the areas of health and wellness. And so Justin has always been self-motivated to improve, developing the discipline and work ethic necessary to excel. At 13 years old, his father said, "Son, talent will get you noticed." I love this, but consistency will get you paid. And that set up his quest for founding Own It. Over the last 20 plus years, Justin has worked with Stanley Cup champions, NHL MVPs, Super Bowl champions, Olympians, 8, 9, and 10-figure entrepreneurs, Fortune 500 companies. And after completing his master's in sports performance and human biology, Justin sought out postgraduate work in functional medicine. He's worked as a performance director in the NHL and the NCAA, and founded a private camp for professional hockey players, focusing on healing them from the inside out. He is an Amazon best-selling author for his books Intent Blueprint and the Own It Manual, and they focus on peak performance, human optimization, and applying data and testing to create personalized blueprints. I love this. Justin's knack for making the complex simple is among the best in the performance industry. Nobody takes the latest research on nutrition, training, and recovery and packages it, and I love this, into digestible, systematic, and applicable steps, particular with the Outer Energy team with Own It Coaching. And this is a blessing to have you on. Justin, great to have you here today, man.
Rob, I'm excited to be here and see what we can do for your group in terms of Operation Breakthrough here.
Let's help some people. So first of all, let's get people to know a little bit about you. When did you first discover that you had a passion for this, for helping people, coaching people?
For coaching people, I mean, it developed a little bit later, but it was really about myself at the beginning. Like you mentioned, my father said, "Son, talent will get you noticed, consistency will get you paid." And that was at 13. And I always wanted to be a hockey player. That's what I was all about. And I just all of a sudden realized that if I could be in control of something and it could increase my outcomes, it could increase the success that I would have, why would I ignore that? Why would I turn a blind eye to that? And those areas that I could control were my sleep, my nutrition, my focus, my mental clarity, my energy, my hydration status, the environment I was in. And I just wanted to know more about my body, this thing that I'm going to spend my entire life in. And if I can understand it, I can ultimately make better choices. And so, after I would say 15 years of really going down this deep educational path, I came down to the States on a hockey scholarship. I got my master's degree. Then I went and did my postgraduate work in heart rate variability, sleep, and recovery science. Stepped into the National Hockey League as a performance coach and a performance director, and was managing the health, wellness, and performance of the best athletes in the world for well over a decade. And what I failed to do for myself was build a life by design, the same thing that I was doing for these athletes. And at 29, I started to just get this terrible pain in my stomach. It was like the span of 6 months. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the mental clarity. I didn't have the focus. I didn't have the deep sleeps that I was used to. And I felt bloated all the time. And I was just like, something's not right. But yet every doctor told me I was healthy. Every functional medicine practitioner I went to said I was healthy. All my labs came back great. And they just tried to put me on more supplementation. But I said, something is not right. And ended up getting a colonoscopy and an endoscopy. And they found 6 polyps the size of my thumb, all precancerous in my colon, and a ulcer the size of a quarter, also precancerous in my stomach. And he said, had I not persisted and gone in, that I wouldn't have seen my 35th birthday. And
Wow.
that was, I think, the wake up call for me to step out from the league and say, hey, this isn't an athlete problem that we're solving here, but rather a human problem, especially for those type A's, those people who are wanting to really make a change, make an impact in any form of business or life. You have to figure out how to manage yourself, your body, your health first, so that you can go and have a larger impact on everybody else.
I believe that, man. What did you do? What are some steps you actually took, like some practical steps, just so people can understand that, you know, this didn't just happen overnight. You actually had to put some work in. What did you do? You said you had to make a transition. Can you just maybe come give me a little insight on some of the things you had to do to get your health in order?
Well, I think so. Here's the thing: is like I've always been the fittest guy in the room since I was, again, at 13 years old. That was kind of like the obsession that came into it. And 28, 29 years old, when all this was happening, I had the six-pack abs, I had the muscles, I ate really well. I knew all the information, but it was everything else. It was the other 24, or I guess the other 23 hours of the day that I wasn't stewarding well. I wasn't planning out what my meals were. So it was a lot of protein bars, protein shakes, and whatever was available at the rink. I wasn't sleeping well. I was staying up until all late at hours of the night, studying data from the players so that I could ultimately apply it the next day in the training room, getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. 82 games a season. So you're traveling. I was on the road, excuse me, on the road for 90 to 100 days every single year. And so I didn't have a travel framework. I was just randomly going about seeing whatever I would do in whatever city I was in. And so these are the types of things that started to catch up to me from a stress standpoint, because our body, and we'll get into this, but our body doesn't know the difference between mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stressors. And so it was starting to really catch up with me. And it got to a point where my body was asking to cash checks that it didn't have the revenue for. And
Jeez,
it really, like I said, it almost cost me my life. And that experience caused me to really want to capture something and do something different in the health and wellness industry, knowing that it's not just about how you look on the outside. It's not just about how you're eating or how much exercise you're doing. It's everything else that we have to make sure is in rhythm in the season that you're in.
What is your definition of health? Like when you speak, like especially at this stage, and I know we've talked about the, you know, six-pack abs and the muscles and that kind of thing, but at this stage, you know, when you talk, and there's nothing wrong with having six-pack abs, I'm not against it, but at the same time, like you said, you can have that six-pack ab and still not be healthy. What is your definition of health to a person that is just, I mean, the average person who wants to be healthy, doesn't know much about it, but would like to step into it? What would you define? Help me define health.
I love this question. And I'm going to sum it up really easily. The capacity and desire to intentionally and consistently behave at a level equal to your mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional potential.
Say that again, please.
The capacity and desire to intentionally and consistently behave at a level equal to your mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional potential.
Man,
and so I'm going to highlight 2 words here, because everybody has the desire to be healthy. Nobody's going to, if you said to somebody, hey, do you want to be healthy or unhealthy? No one's going to say, I'd rather be unhealthy. Thank you.
Right. Of course.
They're going to say, I want to be healthy. Everyone has the desire, but why then does over 70% of our population not get to experience what true health is? Because they don't have the capacity. They've lost the capacity. They've lost the ability to perform or play or feel at what the potential is that they're supposed to be at, whether that's mental, physical, spiritual, emotional.
Can you break that down a little more? Can you even break that down a little more so we can
I'm going to continue to break it down. 100%.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And so when you think about not having the capacity, why don't we have the capacity to take on more stress? Why do we have this cup that is a fixed size, and the stress that life has poured into it has slowly begun to overflow, but yet we haven't been able to increase the capacity of that cup because we haven't intentionally and consistently established behaviors in our life that can ultimately be like holes being poked in that cup that allow the cup to drain, so that we can do more, we can be more, we can take on more stress, we can take on more opportunities, we can take on more responsibility, we can take on more stressors in all of these ways. And so the consistency and intentionality of these behaviors, we've never actually thought it through. We've never said, hey, what does my body need today? What does my body need at this moment? And by failing to do that, we always fall short on the level of capacity. And we're stuck in this cup of average. It's an average size. It's the same as everybody else's in America. And so I want to give this like little analogy, this little picture. I want you to think of a styrofoam cup. We've all had those styrofoam cups. They put like really crappy coffee in it. And when you're at like some sporting event and that's what you're drinking.
Yeah.
If you're in this styrofoam cup and you're getting the world's stress, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, poured into that cup and it starts to overflow, that's the example of your body starting to experience symptoms, or starting to feel this level of overwhelm. But the moment that you start a meditation practice, start getting 7-8 hours of sleep a night, start having a night routine, start having a morning routine, start eating anti-inflammatory foods, start eating whole foods, start working out, start getting some outdoor time, start getting 10 hugs a day, start being more aware about who you're talking to throughout the day, start being aware of the music you're listening to, the podcast you're listening to, who's speaking into your day, starting to get into a community of people who elevate you and not pull you down. All you're doing is you're starting to poke holes in this styrofoam cup that's literally allowing the stress to drain out. So you don't need to turn the faucet down on stress. You actually get to seek more of it. You get to go and be the light. You get to go and be more impactful to all the people that you're trying to be impactful to, and going in with capacity to take on more. And that's the difference of somebody who has their health and is striving versus somebody who doesn't have their health and is grinding. And that's what I want to come back to. And that's what I want people to really take from this, is that you don't have to live a life by default. You don't have to continue to trade your health for your mission. You can actually live a life by design and execute at a level that is so much greater. You don't have to live a life by default. You don't have to trade your health for your mission. You can ultimately step into something and live a life by design that allows you to have both, that allows you to be abundant and to live at your potential and even supersede what you could have ever imagined.
So I love this because, how often, and I think you even said it yourself, I mean, not on purpose, but I mean, how often do we trade our health for a position, trade our health for a title, trade our health for a job? And we all have to have this type of stuff, but there has to be, I heard you say this, and many say this, health is wealth, and if you don't have your health, you don't have wealth. So what are some, could you just give me like maybe the top 3 things that you could identify, the people who should identify, hey, I'm stressed out. I need to increase some capacity in my life. I'm definitely not living my life by design. I'm obviously living by default here. What are 3 main things that you could say, these would help me identify my cup's overflowing here?
So number 1, and again, I like to give like some subjective metrics, but then I also like to give quantifiable metrics, because it's not always easy to kind of come back to kind of that concept of what's going on there. So I give this example of fake health and true health. And so if we think about this fake health continuum, on the far left side, you've got true health. This is where you wake up in the morning full of energy, mentally clear. You're able to do your to-do list for the day. You go and maybe get your workout in. You take the kids to school. You come home and have your back-to-back meetings. Maybe you have a lunch call with a family member or your significant other. You go, you get everything done in the afternoon. You pick your kids up, you take them to soccer practice, you come home, connect as a family, go to bed, sleep deeply, do it all the next day. Maybe different for different people, but it's something like that. Full of energy, full of vitality, and mentally clear and deep focus. On the far right side, you've got death and disease. This is when you've entered into the chronic illness space. This is when you've got your cancer, your stroke, your heart attack, your diabetes, your obesity, whatever it is that's really attacking you that you're now getting treated for. But it's this 90% in the middle that I want you to be aware of. This is fake health, disease-free, but symptom full, where everybody in the world would tell you you're healthy, but you've got body weight, body aches, you've got
Yep.
overwhelm, you've got
Yep.
headaches, you've got burnout, you've got
Yep.
chronic fatigue, you don't sleep well, you've got this weight that keeps getting added on that you don't know where it's coming from, you've got brain fog that's indescribable. All of these things are symptoms that is a signal to your body that you're not adapting well and your cup is overflowing. And so when you have these symptoms are not normal, but yet the world tells us it is. That's what it takes to be an entrepreneur. That's what it takes to be a mom. That's what it takes to be a dad. That's what it takes to be in a marriage. That's what it looks like when you move homes or move states or you transition into something. All lies. They are conditions and symptoms based off of circumstance and environment that you're putting yourself in, which is a life by default. And so that in there and of itself is a massive subjective way for us to be able to, hey, you know what is my body trying to communicate to me? What symptoms is it saying I'm not liking that I have to pay attention to and stop justifying and step up and actually take ownership of and say, hey, there's a different way of living here. I need to become aware of something new. So that's the subjective side. Quantifiably, this is what I did all of my postgraduate research in. It's been the foundation to a lot of how I've built out processes and systems through the National Hockey League and then into Own It. But it's a metric called heart rate variability. And at its core, if you actually start to think about what heart rate variability is it's the language that your body is communicating to you, how you've adapted to stress and strain. Stress being mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, because our body doesn't know the difference between it. And so all of a sudden, as you're now able to look at a metric, a single number on a day-to-day basis, and be able to see a trend line either increasing in variability or decreasing in variability, you're going to have a real-time subject or quantifiable metric that's saying, hey, you're adapting well to the stress that you're under, or you're not adapting well. And you need to make a change in your lifestyle and your habits. And so when we think about heart rate variability, it's looking at the time sequence or the time interval between beats. And the more variation, meaning maybe it's 745 milliseconds, 840, 922, 645, there's a high amount of variability between those beats. It means your body's adapting really well. It's like loosey-goosey. It feels good. There's no high level of panic, stress, or overwhelm subjectively inside your body. It's adapting well. It could be the way that you're communicating at home. It could be the environment you're in, all of these things. But all of a sudden, whether it's a real stressor, a perceived stressor, a positive stressor, a negative stressor, a mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional stressor, your body's one reaction is to go sympathetic, which is to go fight or flight mode. And because we're chronically exposed to this, our body's like, oh my gosh, somebody's after Rob. We have to keep him alive. And it starts to create a very rhythmic pattern of how your heart beats, which is a great indicator that your nervous system is under chronic stress and chronic overload. And that will ultimately be determined by a lower variation, a lower variability in heart rate. And so when you say a higher trend number in HRV, it means that you are positively adapting to stress and strain. If you see a downward trend in that number, it means you're not adapting as well. So if you're 45 years old and your heart rate variability, this is again based off of about 1.5 million people. But again, they're just trend lines. You should be focused on your own numbers.
Sure, I like that.
If you're 45 years old and you don't have an HRV between 45 and 75, your body is communicating to you that, hey, you're not adapting to stress and strain really well, and I need you to change your habits, behaviors, and systems in your life so that I can start to adapt better. The cool part about this is if you actually start to look at the stressors that you're exposed to and the symptoms that you're experiencing and heart rate variability, they will be directly correlated. The more symptoms you have, the lower your HRV will be.
Hmm.
And as you start to see those symptoms drop, the higher HRV will start to climb, because you're now poking more holes into that cup and your body's now responding in a positive way. Chronic stress creates chronic inflammation, creates chronic symptoms. Chronic symptoms we say are normal, which creates chronic illness, and chronic illness is the leading cause of death in the United States. And so literally we are earning our illnesses based upon how we're living.
It's amazing. And, it's been such a lie we've been told by so many people, and big pharma and different organizations, and it's amazing to me. And every time I hear something like this, it just motivates me to continue to expose information like this, to get this word out to people, because really we can solve. I believe this. We can really solve most of our problems by what we put in our mouth. Is that not true? Most of our health problems, majority of them, if we start changing the way we eat, and then again, we start talking about stressors here. We can't actually eliminate stress, but can we learn how to manage our stress? And not necessarily alleviate it, but are there ways or techniques to I don't know if the word is manage stress is the right way, or is it control the stress, or is it what would be the right word for this? What
Yeah,
are we trying to accomplish?
Yeah, let me give you let me give you a little example here, because I think so often we think about stress and people are like, oh, well, there's always stress in my life. Stress is necessary. We have
Yeah,
to be exposed to stress. If you're not exposed to stress, you become easier to kill. That, quite frankly, you literally lose capacity. We talk back to health. Think about the person who works their entire life, all of a sudden retires, moves to
love this.
Florida, plays pickleball for an hour, and then watches The Price is Right and all the sitcoms throughout the afternoon.
Yeah,
They sit in a air conditioned environment. They don't go outside because it's too hot. They don't come up to Canada or northern the United States because it's too cold. And all of a sudden, 10 years later, looked they're dead. They're getting put into a palliative care home or a assisted living home, and they're passing away very quickly because they haven't been exposed to stressors, and
yeah,
their body doesn't have to adapt to anything. But what we fail to do in a society, and if you go over to Italy, you go over to Spain, you go over to Greece, they've got this figured out really, really well when it comes to a rhythm for people between the ages of 20 and 65. We've done a terrible job culturally in America finding this rhythm.
yeah,
And so all I'm asking for us to do is to be able to look at where are you adding stress from and where are you getting into a regeneration space. So I almost divide the screen into four. And in the upper right quadrant is what we call the overreaching quadrant. This is where you're really leaning into stress, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, because you want to grow a family, you want to grow a business, you want to
yeah.
get fit, you want to have an impact in this world. You're going to take on stress. That's the way it
Sure.
is. But this should be where you're able to turn the faucet on. You're seeking this. You want it to be on. But what we fail to remember is this bottom left quadrant where we're talking about regeneration, our habits and behaviors and lifestyle components that allow us to poke holes in this cup
Yeah,
need to be there. This is a non-negotiable, because if you don't have this bottom part and you only have this stress and overreaching part, it throws you into the bottom right quadrant, which is what we call burnout and illness, or
yeah,
burnout and blow up, your choice. And we all know these people that work so hard, they push, and then they get sick. And then they'll go through that cycle once every quarter, once every 6 months, and they'll just get completely thrown off, or they'll have a mental breakdown 2 years into building their business, or they become irritable and unpleasant to be around, or they've gained 80 pounds in the course of 5 years because of this is the symptoms that are coming from this. This is what this looks like. This is not normal.
yeah,
Conversely, when we find the rhythm between overreaching and regeneration, we operate in this upper right quadrant, which I call ownership. And this is where we are creative, where life is working, where we're energetic, where we're motivated, when we know what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, when we're pushing and able to ultimately have a greater impact. You go back to health and performance and that definition, the desire and the capacity to operate intentionally and consistently at a level at or above our potential. And that's truly what we're seeking.
Good,
and so finding this rhythm is what we have to do, is what becomes so critical for us, is to how do we live a life by design based on the season that we're in, based on the reason that we want to step into this area, so that it can be sustainable. It's not a 75 hard where I'm going to work out twice a day to get 6-pack abs and get to this point, because guess what?
Yeah.
It's no different than the diet where you go and you lose 50 pounds, but then you gain 60 back, or you go and you go through all these waves. Well, guess what? That's just more stress on your body, and it's more stress mentally, more stress emotionally, more stress physically. And so if we can just establish a lifestyle, it's going to allow us to really do that. And I'll kind of give you the 4 pillars, the 8 foundations that I really talk about, where you can start to pull different levers based upon what HRV is telling you, based upon what your MVP is. This is what I say: your mission, purpose, and values, and where you're trying to go and how you're trying to really personalize this for you based upon what your body's asking.
Man, I love this. And, when it comes to, you mentioned season and reason, and we all are at a different season, or age or stage. We all have a different reason, or motive for why we want to do things. But across the board, I know you work with people from all different backgrounds. Give me some reasons, and maybe give me just a couple tools. I know people, if they want to get the full package, if they want to learn, or if they want some coaching, that is some personalized coaching, they can contact you. We'll show them how they can do that. But could you just give me a couple appetizers? Maybe for some folks, it doesn't really matter what stage, what age. What are maybe some keys that anybody could apply that's looking to transition out of just living a life of stress, living a life by default? How do I even, some people have never even heard of maybe living a life by design and can appreciate that. How do I shift out of, living this life on autopilot to, okay, now I'm going to start doing something on purpose, doing something with intention?
Yeah. So this is the point in the podcast or the show where, if it was, and I'm very bold in this, is 99% of the people in the health and wellness industry are going to give you these 5 habits that you should start to take on today. And these are the ones that you should start to really focus on. Well, I'm not going to do that, because I don't know you. I don't know your situation. I don't know your purpose. I don't know your mission. I don't know your condition. I don't know your family situation, your lifestyle, or what priorities you have. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an acronym that I want you to really take home to, feel at your heart center. And then I'm going to give you a framework that you can start to play with for yourself.
Love it.
So the acronym that I want you to lean in on, it's called PREPARE. If you prepare yourself for what is already prepared for you, it's inevitable that you're going to accomplish whatever it is that you want.
Love it.
And so the first P stands for purposeful priorities. The outline and framework I'm going to give you is going to give you 8 different areas that you can prioritize. You don't have to focus on all 8. I want you to focus on one. But which one is purposeful for you at this moment, at this stage where you're at? What's your weakest link? What does this mean to you? So P is purposeful priorities. Figure out what that is for you today. Then R is replace. I don't want you to add more things to your day. I don't want you to add more things to your lifestyle. I don't want you to add a grocery list of things. I want you to replace habits and behaviors that are no longer serving you, that maybe served you to the level that you are at, but are not going to get you to where you want to go. I want you to replace these things in your life. Figure out what this new habit or behavior is going to replace an old habit or behavior. Then E is expend. You're going to have to expend time, you're going to have to expend energy, or you're going to have to expend resources. One of those 3. Either you're going to have to expend time learning this, and what does this mean for me? What does HRV mean for me? How can I learn my body better? How can I figure out how to learn this new habit better? How can I be held accountable? Or you're going to have to expend energy going and doing the thing, going and being in this space, or resources where you hire a coach, you hire a team, you hire an expert, you hire peer around you, you get into a community. You're going to have to expend to do this. 3 is persistent practice. Notice how I didn't say perfect practice. You don't have to be perfect in this. There's no level of perfection here. Persistent practice will allow you to continue to keep coming back to the game so that you can come back and it's purposeful, and you're going to basically continue consistently trying to put these practices in place. And over the course of time, it's inevitable that you're going to win. A is accept accountability, knowing that you can't do this by yourself. Nobody won by theirself. It always took a team of people around you. And so, when you're trying to develop a new habit, that if you have accountability around you, it's going to increase the success rate of that. 100%. The next R, rest, reassess, and refine. I want you to take time to sit back and go, the purposeful priorities that I went over, the habits I tried to put into place, how did that start to work for me? What does my HRV say? How do I feel? Give yourself some stillness, some moments to say, man, how did this work in my lifestyle? Is it aligned still with my priorities, what I'm focused on and where I'm trying to go? And then start to refine it. Refine that process. Refine where you're trying to go. And then lastly, E, expect the outcome. I don't know how many people step into something and say they want to do something, but never expect that what they're working towards is ever going to be reached or ever going to be accomplished. Definitely. And so if you don't expect it, there's no longer a reason to prepare. And you're never going to just have the ability to keep going. I was with a team of men the other day, about 100 of them, and we were leading them through a workshop. And I said, guys, if you only knew how close you were, you wouldn't quit.
That's right.
If you only knew how close you were, you'd take that one more step. And so we have to expect the outcome because you're so much closer than you actually think.
Love it, man. Now, I know, obviously we can't unpack everything you do. You've got courses and resources that people can follow up and get additional material if they'd like to. Let's talk about briefly some of these resources.
Before we dive into that, Rob, can I give people... can I just go into the framework really quick?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Is that the eight different areas?
Yeah.
Man, my apologies. Let's jump in these 8 different areas.
No, you're good. I just want to leave your audience with, like, now that they've got like this framework of prepare, like I want them just to see this new thing I'm speaking through differently here. So
go for it, man.
There's 8 different foundations that you can start to really have a massive impact on your health overall and how you show up. And there's going to be different habits that you can start to build and implement. So for example, you've got training and movement. Training and movement, the foundation. We all know that this is there, but I don't need you to work out every day. I don't need you to push yourself hard every day. I don't need you to go through, like, it's a myth. Is it 10,000 steps per day? Is it walking for 5 minutes after every meal? Is it moving every 90 minutes, being able to get outside so you're not chained to your desk all day? Is it strength training 3 days a week? Is it doing 30 minutes of intentional, undistracted training per day? These are all habits that you can start to say, man, you know what? This priority for me today, for the next 3 weeks, 10,000 steps per day. That's what I'm going to start to build my habit on. Is it nutrition? And so when we come to the nutrition pillar, is it waiting 3 hours after waking up to have our first meal? Yeah. Is it stopping eating 3 hours before bedtime? Is it getting 3 meals a day? Is it eating 2 pieces of fruit with a protein source per day? Is it getting 1 salad with a protein source per day? Is it focusing on the order in which you're eating your food? Protein first, veggies second, fats third, carbs last, to regulate your blood sugar. All of those, you can just grab one. Just grab one to start and replace a habit that you were operating on previously. Is it your immune response? Are you getting 100 minutes of sauna, steam room, or hot tub exposure per week? Are you getting 11 minutes of cold exposure per week? Do you have a multivitamin practice that you're going through every day? From a sleep standpoint, another foundation. Do you have a consistent sleep and wake time? Is there 3 hours before bed, no more major meals? 2 hours before bed, no more work? 1 hour before bed, no more blue light? Not hitting the snooze button in the morning. So you're operating on a consistent sleep and wake time. What does this look like to operate in intention? From a mindset standpoint, do you have 15 minutes of meditation or breath work or learning-based reading or gratitude per day or mentorship connection or a deep community that you spend time with? From a hydration standpoint, another foundation. Half your body weight in ounces of water. Do you get that in every single day?
Yeah, man.
And then the last 2, self-care. 30 minutes of self-care per day. Is that breath work, meditation, a walk outside, something that you do just for you? And lastly, environment. Watch the sunset, watch the sunrise,
Yeah, man.
have a morning routine. Do you have a sleep routine? Do you have a night routine? Do you connect with someone you have a deep relationship with deeply? Do you have a community that you connect spiritually with every week? Like, these are the foundations that you
Absolutely.
need to figure out where to prioritize, so that you're not just generating a list, but something that's purposeful and actionable to you, and figure out where you start, so you can start to have a better understanding of what a life by design actually looks like.
How long did it take you when you first made the shift? How long before you actually started seeing some results? Like, I'm starting to feel a shift mentally. I'm starting to feel a shift physically. I know everyone's going to be different. Everyone's got a different, like you say, situation. But like with you, when you finally said, "Listen, enough's enough. I've got to turn the corner here." When you started turning the corner, when did you start seeing traction? How long did it take you?
I mean, after the first week, I'd never wanted to go back. Like, when
Wow,
you realize what a life by design feels like, you'll never want to go back, especially, and I always pray that it doesn't get to this level for people, but when it almost costs you your life, I say this in my book that's coming out in April. Um, the moment that I was given a second chance at life, the only way that I could repay the second opportunity
wow,
was never to go back to what I was doing previous.
100%, man.
And why there, I don't see there to be any greater shame in this life than if you have your health and you choose not to protect it.
Wow,
Like, imagine that. You have people who work their entire lives for something and then would give everything up just to give their health back.
the truth. It's the
But
truth.
yet you have people who have their health and are willing to trade everything to accomplish something that they're going to have to trade it all for anyways. And
Anyway,
so this is like this thing that comes back to me is, you don't have to trade it. You don't have to give it up. You can have both, but it takes a life by design. It takes somebody walking alongside of you and being able to mentor you through this, as a type A person, as a driven person, as somebody who's really on the march forward for a better life in abundance, because we don't know any other way. You can't be an expert in all this stuff. You can't put it all together. But when you start to realize that structure, systems, and
I love it, man.
operations allow us to function at a higher level, it's when you realize that you've Erwin McManus said it best. He goes, "We don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems." And many
Right.
people are built and have built systems to fail. What we've done is we've built systems in our life to fail when it comes to our health. And we need to change that and restructure that with intentionality, so that we can be consistent long term, so that it's sustainable.
I love this, man. And so this is something, if someone wanted to get some additional coaching and to really get some good accountability, they could do this with you, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's what our company's been built for. We serve about 37 professional organizations between the four major leagues. We work with about 36 different Fortune 100 to Fortune 5,000 companies. And then we touch just shy of 20,000 people in a one-on-one basis. And so it's something that we've really taken a deep look at, and how can we serve the high performing person that is wanting to realize something different, and not take what this world has given us as the only option or the only way, and succumb to what is normal, because normal is broken and normal needs to be
Yeah.
reinvented. And that's what we've been able to do.
I love it, man. Before we talk about your resources, what would you say would be one of the number one or number two, one or two obstacles that keep people from having their epiphany or the light turn on? I mean, and I know for me as well, I don't won't talk about my story, but I had to have, a situation happen with my health that had to make me, that actually forced me to take a little more serious look, not actually a little more, but a much more serious look at my health. And it's unfortunate when we have to wait for something to happen in order to have leverage, to do something about it. What do you see? What are some of the common traits in people, do we have to wait to get sick? I mean, do we have to wait for something to happen that's tragic before we make a shift? What are some of our blind spots? Can you help me identify a couple of those?
It's a great question, and I wish um, people would have wake up calls sooner, because it's what I call the good enough cycle, where you have this pain point that it's become aware to you. Maybe it's when you went down to tie your shoe and your stomach got caught in between, and it's like, man, I can't breathe when I'm tying my shoes. Like, this isn't
Yeah, man.
normal.
Yeah, man.
Maybe it's all of a sudden you haven't had a good night's sleep in over you don't remember the last time you had a really good night's sleep, and you've just gotten used to chugging coffee as your energetic liquid of choice, and you're like, man, this isn't normal. But it hasn't bothered me yet. It hasn't affected my life in any major way.
Yeah.
It hasn't dropped my productivity at all. I haven't noticed life any different. And so, because you don't know what different feels like, you're stuck in the mundane, you're stuck in mediocrity, you're
Yeah.
stuck in good enough. And the downside is because people just don't want to say, you know what, I need help. You know what, I want to put my ego aside, and I need help in this area. I need to focus on this area, because they have this need to protect this little boy or this little girl inside that's like, no, I don't need help. I can do it myself. But yet they're going to continue to just be mediocre. They're going to continue to be
Right.
good enough. They're going to continue down this road until all of a sudden they get thrust from that fake health space into that death and disease bucket. And now they're like, oh, can you help me now? No, it's too late. Like,
Sure, man. Right.
we can, but it's going to be a very hard and arduous road up. You don't need to lose 40 pounds now. You need to lose 120. You don't need, you've got 5 blocked arteries and cholesterol that's through the roof, and you're already diabetic. Like, we can do some work, but 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, we could have really been preventable. And so
For
this
sure.
is, I think that's the one area. The second area is when people think that when they focus on health, that they have to give up financial growth, that they have to give up business growth, that they have to give up time with their family, that it's going to become obsessive and you have to live like a professional athlete, which is the absolute biggest lie I've ever seen.
So true, man. So
Because
true.
when you just start to make these small iterative changes,
So true.
you're
So
eating
true.
every single day. What if you knew exactly what it was that you were supposed to eat?
That's right. That's right.
You're walking every day. What if you were able to actually intentionally choose when you were going to walk, and you could actually get the timing in where it felt good, and you weren't feeling like you had to steal from Peter to pay Paul
That's
and
it.
increase all the anxiety? You're sleeping anyways. What if you had a framework? You were operating an environment. What if it was optimized? Optimized doesn't mean perfect. Optimized means better. The
Yep.
pursuit of
Love it.
better. And so those are some of the beliefs that come in play that ultimately start to separate us from being willing to take a step into this versus playing on the outside.
It's good stuff, man. So I know you have a health abundance assessment that might help people identify some areas that might need some improvement, or maybe some areas that are out of alignment. Can you tell me just a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when people always want access to something, they want access to, like, how do you lean in? And I stopped wanting to just send a free resource or a free PDF. I wanted to take people through something that they could at least get exposed to, not just education, but
Yeah.
empowerment in how to do this, like the system, the so what. And so if you go to the assessment, which is healthabundancescore.com, what it'll actually start to take you through is a series of questions. And what those series of questions will help us understand is, where does your health abundance start to fall off? Is it mental? Is it physical? Is it spiritual? Is it emotional? Where do these components fall? And then what it does is it takes you on a 2-week journey, and you're going to get these through emails. And that first day, you're going to be given the opportunity to get a free wearable device. So you don't even have to purchase this thing to get HRV. We're actually going to provide it for you.
Awesome.
And so you're going to be, and that first couple days, you're going to learn what HRV is, learn what it's all about, start to actually see what it's actually happening in your body, start to learn it. And then for the next 2 weeks, you're going to go through and iteratively start to make small, minor changes to your habits, to your routines. And ultimately, at the end of those 2 weeks, have a new life by design
Love
that
it,
you can
bro.
step into. And so it's guiding you on this journey to be able to really kind of dip a toe into a life by design and allow you to take ownership of your health for possibly the first time in your life.
That's very cool. Thank you for providing that also too. And then you have 2 books, and then you now have a 3rd book coming out. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was
Tell me about this.
blessed.
Tell me about the new one here, if you wouldn't mind. You're about to talk about. Tell us about that new one coming out here for just a minute.
Yeah, so I was very blessed to sign a book deal with Wiley Publishing. And so
Congratulations.
thank you very much. So this book's coming out April 20th. And we'll have a whole bunch of things going on during our book release during Q1 of 2024. But the book is called The Power of Ownership.
Love it.
And the subtitle is Redeem Your Health, Live Life by Design, and Break the Aggressive Pursuit of Normal. And as we can start to really take a lot of what we talked about today, the concepts of heart rate variability, the concepts of a life by design, the 8 foundational principles of a life in ownership, and really start to understand them, it'll take you on a step-by-step journey of identifying what your priorities are, identifying where the hurdles are, identifying where the barriers are, figuring out how do we break them down, how do we navigate them so that we can step into this life by design, create an accountability system. And once we have a system in place, we can rise to the level of what our new system is so that we can ultimately intentionally and consistently perform at the level in which we were ultimately prepared for.
And tell me again, when is this going to be released?
April 21st, or no, pardon me. Yeah, April 21st of 2024.
And how can we get it?
If you, it'll be in Barnes & Noble, but and all over Amazon. But there will be if you just search The Power of Ownership through Google or Amazon, anywhere you'll be able to find it. But we'll also have a page on our website.
That's awesome. Tell me about your other 2 books. You've got one called Intent Blueprint, and you have one called the Own It Manual. Tell me a little bit about the Intent Blueprint.
The Intent Blueprint was really designed for people in the sport performance industry. And how do you now create athletic kids, athletic systems, athletic departments within high schools, colleges, professional organizations, whether your budget is $1 or whether your budget is 10 million. And so being able to really develop, again, a system focused on health preceding performance. But if you are leading a team or an organization in the athletic realm, when we get into the Own It Manual, this is actually pretty interesting because it's much more focused on life and a holistic component of that, because it was a major part of my healing, to be honest with you, when I stepped away from the NHL and came into the side of entrepreneurship, was looking back at what I've done wrong when it came to my relationships, my health, my self-care, my network, my the legacy in which I was leaving, and how do I take a step back and actually start to prioritize the right things in my life. And that was really just a process that I went through, and turned my my process or my system into a book and a workbook. So a lot of storytelling and stuff like that.
So this is when you say own this is you. This is actually your life. You owned it yourself. Now you're telling other folks how to do it. And I love that. I love people that actually live what they preach. And you've actually walked through a lot of stuff. And I just love the fact that you're now giving back and sharing nuggets to help people grow and to improve and to transform. One last question I have for you. What would you say in all that you've been doing? What would be one of your greatest lessons in terms of mindset shift, in terms of application? I don't know. And just in terms of just when you made your big shift to where you are now, and you're just continuing to move forward. And I love growth mindset people. But what was the big thing that was the turnaround? What was the main thing that just said, okay, this is the thing that's going to make it happen. I know you mentioned the health, but motive, is really big. And I've heard you even talking about this. What was your motive? Not just the health, because you can get sick and get healthy and get sick again. You can get some money and get some money and be broke again. But there's, if you have a motive, and there's some meaning behind it, it's like you said, I like the word sustainable. I don't like just have a diet. I want to have a lifestyle, and so talk to me about that for just a moment. Like, what was the big shift? What was the big moment?
I wouldn't say there was a big moment. It was a realization, and it comes back to my faith that God's created me for a purpose. And in order for me to optimize myself and manage this gift and blessing that I have to be Justin Roethlingshoefer sitting in this chair on this day and have the ability to speak, have the ability to create, have the ability to think, have the ability to articulate, you have to manage that. And if you don't manage it, it is going to be wasted. But the funny part about this is that there's only 4 mindsets to show up in this world: impossible, possible, probable, and inevitable.
Love it.
And when I chose to have the inevitable mindset, everything changed. That no matter what it is that I do, no matter how hard I work, no matter where I'm going, it's inevitable that you're going to get an outcome. It's either going to be something that you desire, or it's going to be something that you do not, dependent on how consistent, intentional, and prioritized you actually are in your pursuit.
So if I'm sowing the right seeds, the inevitable is I'm gonna get the right outcomes. If I'm sowing the negative seeds, the inevitable is I'm gonna get a negative outcome. It's
the power of inevitability. It's like, that should be my next book, The Power of Inevitability, because at the end of the day, it's inevitable you're going to get an outcome. It's inevitable that this podcast is going to ultimately be heard by the right person, the person that needs to hear it. You hear these made up laws all the time, like Murphy's Law. When the student's ready, the coach appears. Well, no, it was inevitable that was going to happen. You just had to change the thought process of what you were looking for. You just had to change what you were spatially aware of. You just needed to change the intention or purpose of what you were ultimately driving for. And ultimately, when you start to look for it, boom, there it was. It showed up. It's not. It has nothing more to do than inevitability. You want to build that real estate empire? You can do it. Are you willing to pay the price? You want to build that family? You can do it. Are you willing to pay the price? You want to go and build that platform and have that community? You can do it. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Are you willing to take the steps it's going to take in order to get there? Rob didn't all of a sudden have this beautiful podcast studio. I'm sure you had a whole bunch with just a random background before all of a sudden you did enough of these. You started to show up enough, and lo and behold, look at the outcome and the inevitability of that, because you put the time in and you consistently and you intentionally had the behaviors that showed up that ultimately yield this outcome.
Yes, sir. Now, I want to ask you one more question here, because I didn't really get into this, and I know we're bringing it to a close, but I do have to ask you this, because you brought this up a couple times now, because I'm big on this. You talked about community, talk about mentorship, coaching, accountability. I believe in that we can be accountable, to self, but how important is it when you're trying to make strides, you're trying to go to that next level, you are really trying to create a system. How important is accountability and coaching when you are really trying to make moves, when you are really trying to fast forward without excuses? How important and how necessary? I know I can speak for myself how important it is, but for you, I know we're both coaches, but we're also coachable, and we've both been coached. How valuable has coaching been to you to help you continue to climb this ladder?
It's a game changer. Jesse Isler tells a story where when he was trying to, and I'll change some of the words a little bit to kind of shape what we were talking about today, but he tells a story where when he was growing up building marquee jets, he started to get around some of the wealthiest people in the world, because he'd started a private jet company and he was flying people and was just hanging out with these people. And he saw people that were healthy and wealthy, and he saw people that were unhealthy and wealthy. And he started to ask the people who were healthy and wealthy, what do you do to live so richly? And they started to talk about their habits, their
Wow.
behaviors, their lifestyles. And
I
so he
love it.
started to write all these things down. And then he started to go and try all of these habits and implement them into his day and go over the course of a year and say, hey, what happened in the last year? These are some habits that work for me. These are ones that don't. The ones that stick, he still does or does. The ones that didn't, he dropped off. Well, over the course of 6 or 7 years, he was able to develop this lifestyle and this life by design that put him into the categories and getting the results that those healthy and wealthy people were. Well, guess what? You don't have to go build a private jet company. You
Yeah.
don't have to wait 7, 8, 9, 10 years when you get a coach and a mentor who already has the system. You already have the process. You already have the framework. You can time collapse all of that down into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. What is that worth to you? Because the only thing that you can't get back is time. And if you can time collapse and you can be given the gift of time collapse, that doesn't have a price on it.
No, I love this. And I agree with you on this. So when it comes to coaching, if someone wanted to engage you in coaching, how can we do that?
Yeah, just very simple. I'm available on 2 places. And this is, I think, one of the cool things about us and our company is I always want to have a pulse and a blue and a feel for how everything is happening. So I open up my schedule usually for 2 hours every week. We get about, I'd say, probably 60 to 70 calls booked every week, and I take about 5 to 10 of them, just simply to get a pulse of who's coming through and what we're how we're impacting people, and the pain points that people are struggling with, and wanting to give them hope and guide them in a better direction. So if you go to ownitcoaching.com, very easy way to find more information, or I'm very active through my Instagram. It's at Justin Roth, Roeth.
Justin, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. This was an incredible program. I'm looking forward to seeing this myself. And you guys stay healthy out there and be transformed.